In the vast central chamber of the Galactic Cooperative Headquarters, an urgent message flashed across the main display. Ambassador Illyra's delicate blue antennae twitched with concern as she read the desperate plea from her homeworld. "Another attack on the Centaur colony," she announced to the Council. "The Vordak fleet has destroyed our outer defenses. We cannot hold much longer." The Council members exchanged worried glances. The Vordak Empire had been expanding aggressively for years, consuming smaller civilizations in their path. The peaceful Zenturians, with their advanced arts and sciences, but minimal military capabilities, were easy prey. "We must send aid immediately," declared Council Leader Vex, his crystalline form shimmering with agitation. "But who? Our peacekeeping forces are stretched thin across 3 sectors." A moment of uncomfortable silence filled the chamber. Illyra knew what they were all thinking, but hesitant to suggest. "There is one option," offered Councillor Draz, his voice low. "The humans." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. Humans were newcomers to galactic society, barely a century since their first contact. Their home planet, Earth, was classified as a death world, a harsh environment that had forged a species with alarming physical capabilities and a troubling history of warfare. "They are dangerous," protested one council member. "Unpredictable." "Which is precisely why the Vordak might fear them," countered Draz. "The humans have a remarkable military presence for a species so new to space travel." Illyra stepped forward. "I will go to Earth myself. If there's even a chance they'll help, we must try." 3 days later, Commander William Hayes stared in amazement at the alien diplomat seated across from him in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. He had seen non-humans before, but the delicate blue-skinned Zenturian with her translucent antennae and 4 slender arms was still a remarkable sight. "Your people need soldiers," Hayes repeated, processing the request. "To fight in a war like years from Earth." "Yes," Illyra replied. "The Vordak Empire will not stop with Centaur. They consume worlds, Commander. Eventually, they would reach Earth as well." General Rivera, standing by the window, nodded slowly. "The UEDF has been looking for an opportunity to establish our position in the galactic community. This could be it." Hayes considered the implications. Earth had unified its military forces after first contact, recognizing the need for a cohesive defense strategy in a universe full of unknown threats. Now they were being asked to project that power across the stars. "I'll need to select my team carefully," Hayes said, already mentally reviewing candidates. "How long do we have?" "The Vordak will complete their orbital platforms within 1 Earth month. After that, our main cities will fall quickly," Illyra explained, her voice trembling slightly. "Then we have no time to waste," Hayes replied, standing up. "General, I'll need immediate clearance for the UES Valiant and authorization to assemble a special response team." As he left the meeting, Hayes felt a mix of excitement and concern. Humans had fought each other for millennia, but this would be their first interstellar combat mission. The cooperative barely understood what humans were capable of, and honestly, Hayes wasn't sure the Vordak were ready to find out either. "Command to Hayes," his comm unit crackled. "You have full authorization. The Valiant is being prepared as we speak." The mission had begun. Commander William Hayes stood in the briefing room aboard the UES Valiant, Earth's most advanced warship. The holographic display showed profiles of military personnel as he swiped through them. "Computer, show me Captain Lisa Morgan," Hayes ordered. The screen shifted to display a woman with short red hair and intense green eyes. Her file highlighted exceptional marks in weapons training and urban combat. "She once held off 30 insurgents with just a rifle and combat knife," Hayes explained to Ambassador Illyra, who watched with wide eyes. "I need her." Illyra's antennae quivered. "Your species finds such violence admirable." "Necessary, sometimes," Hayes replied, already moving to the next file. "Lieutenant Daniel Foster, Navy tactical expert. He can predict enemy movements like he's reading their minds." The door slid open as Hayes continued his selections. Major Christopher Bennett, an Air Force pilot with unmatched flight records, and Army Sergeant Grace Wilson, a combat medic who had performed surgery in active war zones. "Sir," reporting as ordered, came a crisp voice. Hayes looked up to see Captain Morgan entering the room, followed by the others he had just selected. "That was fast," Hayes said with a slight smile. "We were already on standby, Commander," Foster explained. "Word travels quickly when aliens ask for help." Ambassador Illyra stepped back instinctively as the humans gathered around the briefing table. Their casual confidence around death and combat disturbed her. On Zenter, even discussing violence caused physical discomfort. "The situation is this," Hayes began, activating a 3D map of Zenter. "The Vordak Empire has the planet surrounded. They've established orbital platforms here, and here. Ground forces are making steady progress toward the capital. Urban warfare is my specialty," Morgan said, studying the map. "What are we looking at for gravity, atmosphere?" "Zenter has 80% of Earth's gravity," Illyra provided. "Our atmosphere has slightly higher oxygen content." Bennett grinned. "So we'll be stronger and have more endurance than usual. Advantage. Humans. What about the enemy?" Foster asked. "Strengths. Weaknesses. The Vordak rely on overwhelming force," Illyra explained. "They have never faced significant resistance. Until now," Wilson added, checking her medical supplies. "Commander, what's our insertion plan?" Hayes expanded the hologram to show their approach vector. "We'll be going in hot. The Valiant will engage their outer defenses while we deploy to the surface in drop pods." The casual way Hayes described a dangerous orbital insertion shocked Illyra. Her people considered space travel without proper docking procedures to be suicidal. "Sir, permission to bring the experimental armor?" Morgan asked. "Granted. We're taking everything that isn't bolted down," Hayes confirmed. The team dispersed to prepare, leaving Hayes with the ambassador. "Your people seem eager for combat," Illyra observed worriedly. Hayes considered this. "Not eager. Ready. There's a difference. Humans have been fighting our whole history. It's not something we enjoy, but it's something we're very, very good at." In the armory, Morgan and Foster loaded weapons while discussing strategy. "Heard the Vordak have never seen a human before," Foster said, checking the sights on his rifle. "Then we'll make quite the first impression," Morgan replied. Meanwhile, Bennett inspected the drop pods while Wilson stocked them with medical supplies. "These things still terrify me," Wilson admitted. "Free falling through space into an active war zone." Bennett laughed. "Just another Tuesday." The ship's intercom crackled. "All personnel, prepare for departure. We launch in 15 minutes." As the Valiant's engines roared to life, Hayes watched his team complete their preparations with efficient precision. Ambassador Illyra stood nearby, her expression unreadable, but her antennae drooping slightly. "We won't let your people down," Hayes assured her. "I fear what my people will think when they see what humans are capable of," she replied softly. The UES Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder, the vast blue-green world of Zenter immediately filling the view screen. The beauty of the planet stood in stark contrast to the Vordak warships forming a menacing blockade in orbit. "Status report," Commander Hayes ordered, his eyes fixed on the enemy vessels. "Vordak fleet has established a standard siege formation," Lieutenant Foster replied. "Orbital bombardment in progress over the northern continent." Ambassador Illyra gasped as the live feed showed energy weapons pounding her homeworld's surface. "Those are residential areas," she whispered. Hayes nodded grimly. "Captain Morgan, prepare your team for immediate drop. Bennett, I want air support ready 5 minutes after touchdown." The Valiant accelerated toward the planet, its advanced stealth systems temporarily masking their approach. In the launch bay, Morgan's team climbed into their drop pods. "Remember," Morgan told her squad, "we hit hard and fast. Establish a perimeter and hold until reinforcements arrive." The drop pods launched with a violent jolt, streaking toward the planet's surface. Inside his pod, Foster monitored the descent trajectory while Wilson double-checked her medical supplies. Each human felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came before combat. Their landing sent shock waves across the Zenturian capital's outskirts. As the pod's doors blasted open, the humans emerged in full combat gear, weapons ready. A small group of Zenturians approached cautiously. Shorter than humans with their blue skin and 4 arms, they moved with nervous, jerky motions. Their leader, identified by elaborate head markings, stepped forward. "I am Governor Lionel," he said through his translator. "You are the humans." Morgan lowered her weapon slightly. "Captain Lisa Morgan, United Earth Defense Force. We're here to help." The governor's antennae twitched rapidly. "You're so tall. And your exoskeletons." "These aren't exoskeletons," Foster explained, tapping his chest armor. "Just equipment. Our bodies are naturally this size." This revelation sent murmurs through the gathered Zenturians. One of them approached Sergeant Wilson, examining her with scientific curiosity. "Your respiratory rate is extraordinarily slow," the alien noted. "And your muscle density, impossible." Wilson smiled. "Standard human physiology. Nothing special where we come from." Hayes arrived with the second wave of drop pods, immediately assessing the situation. The Zenturians had established a refugee center in what appeared to be a school building, with wounded civilians streaming in. "Governor," Hayes addressed Lionel, "we need to establish defensive positions immediately. The Vordak will have detected our arrival." As if on cue, the ground shook from a distant explosion. Bennett's voice came through the comlink. "Commander, Vordak ground forces approaching from the east. Heavy armor, about 3 kilometers out." The Zenturians began to panic, their bodies trembling violently. Governor Lionel explained, "Our people physically cannot endure proximity to violence. It causes neurological shutdown. Get your civilians to shelter," Hayes ordered. "We'll handle the fighting." The humans moved with practiced efficiency, establishing defensive positions and setting up weapon emplacements. The Zenturians watched in shock as Morgan casually lifted a heavy barrier that would require 6 of their strongest to move. Foster mapped out the terrain, identifying choke points. "Bennett, we need eyes on their approach vector." "Already on it," came Bennett's reply as his aircraft streaked overhead. When the first Vordak tanks appeared on the horizon, Wilson turned to the governor. "You should take cover now," she advised. "What will you do against such weapons?" Lionel asked, his voice trembling. Hayes checked his rifle and smiled grimly. "What humans do best." As the Vordak forces advanced, firing indiscriminately toward the settlement, the Zenturians retreated to underground shelters. Through observation ports, they watched in amazement as the humans ran toward danger rather than away from it. "Are all humans this fearless?" a young Zenturian asked the governor. "Not fearless," Ambassador Illyra answered, having joined the refugees. "They come from a world where fear is just another obstacle to overcome." The ground shook as Vordak tanks rolled across the open field surrounding Zenter Prime. Their commander, General Kraz, watched through magnified optics as his forces advanced toward the city. "Report on the new arrivals," he demanded. "Unknown species, sir," his lieutenant replied. "Small in number but deploying defensive measures." Kraz snorted dismissively. "The cooperative sends a handful of soldiers. Proceed as planned." On the human defensive line, Lieutenant Foster studied the approaching enemy formation. Classic overwhelming force strategy. They're used to enemies that break and run. "Let's disappoint them," Captain Morgan replied, adjusting the settings on her plasma rifle. She turned to Hayes. "Permission to engage, Commander." Hayes nodded. "Bennett, you're clear for air support. Target their heavy artillery first." Above the battlefield, Major Bennett's fighters screamed through the atmosphere. "Copy that. Weapons hot." The Vordak forces had no warning before precision strikes obliterated their rear artillery positions. Confusion spread through their ranks as communications suddenly jammed. Foster's electronic warfare package working perfectly. Now, Hayes ordered. Morgan led the first strike team forward, moving with surprising speed across the battlefield. The Vordak soldiers, accustomed to fighting the physically weaker Zenturians, were unprepared for the human strength and agility. Inside the command bunker, Sergeant Wilson monitored the tactical display while coordinating with Zenturian medical personnel. A young Zenturian scientist named Neri watched her with fascination. "Your pulse hasn't increased despite the battle," she observed. "How is this possible?" Wilson smiled briefly. "This isn't even particularly stressful by human standards. You should see rush hour traffic on Earth." Outside, the battle intensified. A Vordak tank scored a direct hit near Morgan's position, sending debris and shrapnel flying. A metal shard sliced through her arm, drawing blood. The nearby Zenturian observers gasped in horror, expecting her to collapse. Instead, Morgan simply wrapped a quick bandage around the wound and continued firing. "She's injured. Why doesn't she retreat?" Governor Lionel asked Hayes via comlink. "That's just a flesh wound by our standards," Hayes explained. "Humans can function with injuries that would incapacitate most species." Foster had discovered something interesting about Center's unique magnetic field. "Commander, the Vordak communication systems are vulnerable to disruption if we amplify the natural magnetic fluctuations." "Do it," Hayes ordered. Foster activated a device that sent the Vordak command structure into chaos. Their vehicles began moving erratically, some colliding with each other. General Kraz raged at his subordinates. "What is happening? How can so few defenders cause such disruption?" The tide of battle shifted dramatically when Bennett's air support decimated the Vordak's remaining heavy weapons. Morgan's team exploited the opening, pushing forward aggressively to capture a strategic ridge. From their shelter, the Zenturians watched in amazement. These humans moved differently than any species they had encountered, not with the calculated precision of the Vordak, but with a fluid adaptability that seemed almost impossible to predict. "They fight like they evolved as predators," Ambassador Illira remarked. "We did," Wilson replied simply, overhearing the comment. "Pursuit predators, specifically. Our ancestors would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion." The Zenturians exchanged alarmed glances at this revelation. By sunset, the Vordak forces had retreated to regroup, leaving behind damaged vehicles and equipment. Hayes called his team together for assessment. "We've bought some time," he announced, "but they'll be back with reinforcements." Foster nodded. "They'll adapt their tactics now that they've seen what we can do." Morgan removed her helmet, revealing a face streaked with sweat and dirt. The wound on her arm had stopped bleeding, already beginning to heal. "Let them come. We'll be ready." As night fell over Zenter Prime, the humans established watch rotations while the Zenturians looked on in wonder. These strange Deathworlders had accomplished in one day what their own forces couldn't achieve in weeks. "They're terrifying," Governor Lionel whispered to Illira, "but I'm very glad they're on our side." Dawn broke over the damaged landscape surrounding Zenter Prime. Commander Hayes stood with Lieutenant Foster, studying the holographic map of Vordak positions. The enemy had withdrawn to a defensive line 10 kilometers from the city. "They're regrouping, not retreating," Foster observed. "That formation suggests they're waiting for reinforcements." Hayes nodded. "We need more intelligence. What do we know about their command structure?" Inside the makeshift interrogation room, Captain Morgan sat across from a captured Vordak officer. The alien was bulky with mottled gray skin and 4 yellow eyes that blinked nervously. "Let's try again," Morgan said calmly. "What's your fleet's next objective?" The Vordak officer named Droll clicked his mandibles defiantly. "I will tell you nothing, human." Morgan leaned forward. "You know what's interesting about humans. We evolved as persistence hunters. We can wait a very, very long time." She pulled out a ration bar and began eating it slowly. "I'll just sit here. Maybe tell you about Earth's military history. Did you know we fought wars against ourselves for thousands of years before reaching space? Droll's outer eyes widened slightly. Meanwhile, in the medical center, Sergeant Wilson worked alongside Centurion healers, treating both civilians and soldiers. Her calm efficiency under pressure impressed the alien medical staff. "Your hands are so steady," observed the chief healer, Zara, "and you don't seem affected by the patient's pain." "Compartmentalization," Wilson explained while suturing a wound. "Humans can mentally separate emotional reactions from necessary actions, especially in emergencies." A young Centurion child with an injured limb watched Wilson with fascination. Wilson smiled warmly and offered the child a small candy from her pocket. "On Earth, brave patients get treats," she explained. Major Bennett returned from an aerial reconnaissance mission, landing his fighter on a makeshift airstrip. He jumped down from the cockpit, removing his helmet as Governor Lionel approached. "What did you discover?" the governor asked. Bennett pulled up a portable holographic display. "The Vordak are establishing mining operations here and here," he pointed. "Why these locations specifically?" Lionel's antennae twitched with recognition. "Those are veritium deposits, rare mineral formations unique to Zentir. They power our most advanced technology." So this isn't just a conquest, Bennett realized. It's a resource grab. In the command center, Foster made a breakthrough analyzing Vordak communications patterns. "Commander, I've identified their encryption algorithm. We can intercept their transmissions now." The first decoded message appeared on screen. "Proceed with extraction. 8 Site CVN. Supreme Commander arrives in 3 HFY Stories. Their leader is coming here," Hayes said. "That could be our opportunity." Back in the interrogation room, Officer Droll finally broke. "The Supreme Commander leads from the flagship. He never expected resistance. You have no idea what you've done by challenging us." Morgan smiled slightly. "Actually, challenging overwhelming odds is a human specialty." As the team regrouped to share intelligence, Wilson noticed one of the Zenturian advisors behaving strangely, touching communications equipment when unnecessary and leaving the room during strategic discussions. "Commander," she whispered to Hayes, "I think we have a spy problem." Hayes nodded subtly. "Foster already flagged it. We've been feeding false information for the past 6 hours." That evening, as the Zenturians prepared for sleep cycle, the humans remained alert. Their ability to function on minimal rest astounded their hosts. "Don't you need hibernation periods?" Governor Lionel asked Hayes. "We call it sleep, and yes, but humans can go several days without it if necessary," Hayes explained. "Another survival adaptation from our homeworld." Ambassador Illyra studied Hayes thoughtfully. "Your species evolved to overcome incredible hardships. Now I understand why the cooperative calls Earth a death world." "We just call it home," Hayes replied simply. As midnight approached, Foster's monitoring equipment detected a transmission from within the compound. The team moved silently to surround the source. The governor's chief advisor caught transmitting their position to the Vordak fleet. "We found our spy," Morgan announced, weapon-trained on the trembling Centurion. "Now we can plan our real strategy." The Vordak flagship hung ominously in Zentir's orbit, a massive structure bristling with weapons. Inside its command center, Supreme Commander Vorg studied the tactical display with growing frustration. "How have these humans held out for 5 days?" he demanded. "They are outnumbered 50 to 1. His advisors shifted nervously. "They fight differently, Supreme Commander. Unpredictably." Aboard a small stealth shuttle approaching the flagship, Commander Hayes and his team made final preparations. Captain Morgan checked her weapons while Lieutenant Foster hacked into the Vordak ship's systems using codes obtained from their captured spy. "We'll have approximately 10 minutes before they detect us," Foster warned. "After that, it's improvisation." Hayes nodded. "Morgan and I will head for the command center. Foster, you disable their weapon systems." Back on Zentir's surface, Sergeant Wilson had established a field hospital in anticipation of casualties. Major Bennett coordinated with Zenturian pilots, teaching them basic human combat maneuvers. The key is unpredictability, Bennett explained. Don't fly in formation. Break their expectations. The shuttle docked silently with the Vordak flagship, attaching to an emergency airlock. As the humans prepared to breach, Hayes activated his comm. Bennett, commence the distraction now. On cue, Bennett led a squadron of fighters in a bold attack on the flagship's lower decks. Alarms blared throughout the massive vessel as the Vordak responded to what they believed was the main assault. Now, Hayes ordered. Morgan blasted the airlock open, and the boarding team surged into the Vordak ship. The alien crew, unused to close-quarters combat, fell back in confusion as the humans advanced with shocking speed. In the zero-gravity central corridor, Morgan demonstrated why humans from a high-gravity world were so dangerous in space. She pushed off surfaces with precise force, using the environment as a weapon while Vordak soldiers flailed awkwardly. They evolved on a low-gravity planet, Foster observed, watching a Vordak soldier struggle to correct his trajectory. They never developed the same spatial awareness we have. The team fought their way toward the command center, encountering increasingly fierce resistance. A plasma bolt struck Hayes in the shoulder, burning through his armor. A Zenturian would have collapsed from the pain, but Hayes merely switched his weapon to his other hand and continued firing. On the bridge, Supreme Commander Vorg received alarming reports. Humans? Inside the ship. Impossible, he roared. The command center doors exploded inward. Through the smoke, Hayes and Morgan entered with weapons raised. Vordak officers reached for their sidearms, but froze when Foster's voice came through their own communication system. I wouldn't do that, he warned. I've accessed your ship's core. One wrong move, and I vent all atmosphere from this level. Supreme Commander Vorg stood from his command chair, towering over Hayes. The Vordak leader was nearly 3 meters tall with armored plates covering his torso. So the Deathworlders show themselves, Vorg growled. You think taking this ship will end our campaign? The Vordak Empire spans dozens of systems. Hayes stepped forward, ignoring his injury. This ends now. You're withdrawing from center space immediately. Vorg laughed, a harsh grating sound. You are but 3 humans. What power do you hold here? In response, Hayes activated his comm unit. Bennett, status. All Vordak orbital platforms neutralized. Commander, came Bennett's reply. Centurion fighters performing beautifully. And Wilson reports all ground forces have surrendered or retreated. Hayes turned back to Vorg. Additionally, Lieutenant Foster has just transmitted the complete technical specifications of your flagship to every cooperative world. Your tactical advantage is gone. Vorg's outer eyes narrowed with rage. He lunged at Hayes with surprising speed, but Morgan intercepted, demonstrating human reflexes by dodging his massive fist and using his momentum to throw him across the bridge. The Supreme Commander crashed into his own tactical display, stunned by the impossible strength of the smaller human. How? He gasped. Earth gravity is 1.4 times stronger than your homeworld, Morgan explained casually. We're just built differently. Hayes stepped forward again. You have one chance, Commander Vorg. Withdraw your forces and never return to center, or we will show you exactly why the cooperative calls Earth a death world. The defeated Vordak leader looked at the determined faces of the humans before him. For the first time in his long military career, Supreme Commander Vorg recognized true predators. He gave the order to retreat. The Grand Hall of Zenter Prime glowed with soft blue light as Zenturians gathered to honor their human saviors. 1 week had passed since the Vordak retreat, and reconstruction efforts were already underway across the planet. Commander Hayes stood beside Captain Morgan, Lieutenant Foster, Major Bennett, and Sergeant Wilson on a ceremonial platform. Their uniforms had been cleaned, though Hayes still wore a bandage on his shoulder. Governor Lionel approached with a procession of Zenturian officials. His antennae swayed gently in what the humans now recognized as an expression of deep respect. People of Zenter, Lionel addressed the crowd. For generations we believed that worlds like Earth could only produce savagery and violence. We called them Deathworlds and feared their inhabitants. The governor turned to face the humans directly. We were wrong. Yes, humans evolved in harsh conditions that made them physically formidable. But they also developed compassion, strategy, and an extraordinary will to protect others. Sergeant Wilson watched as injured Centurions she had treated waved their 4 arms in a cultural gesture of gratitude. During her time in the field hospital, she had taught local medical staff human techniques that would save countless lives in the future. The medic who heals with the same hands that can fight, Lionel said, nodding toward Wilson. The pilot who flies with impossible precision, he continued, acknowledging Bennett. The tactician who outthinks an entire command structure, he added, looking at Foster. The warrior whose courage never falters, he said to Morgan. And the leader who brought them together, he concluded, facing Hayes. Ambassador Illyra stepped forward, holding 5 crystal medallions. The Galactic Cooperative has authorized me to offer Earth full membership status, effective immediately. Hayes accepted the honor with a small bow. Earth looks forward to a peaceful partnership. As the ceremony concluded, humans and Centurions mingled in celebration. Foster found himself surrounded by young Centurions curious about Earth. Is it true you have oceans that cover most of your planet? One asked. And storms that can flatten entire forests? Questioned another. Foster smiled. Earth has its challenges, but it's home. Maybe someday you can visit. Across the room, Morgan spoke with several Centurion defense officials. We want to establish our own protection force, the lead official explained. Not to become warriors like humans, but to defend our people in our own way. The best defense comes from understanding your own strengths, Morgan advised. You don't need to become like us. Outside on a balcony overlooking the recovering city, Hayes stood with Ambassador Illyra watching the sunset. The Cooperative Council is reconsidering many of its assumptions about Deathworld species, Illyra admitted. Your people have capabilities we never imagined could exist alongside such civilization. Hayes turned to face her. Humans spent thousands of years fighting each other before we learned that our strength only matters when it protects something worthwhile. The Vordak will remember this defeat, Illyra cautioned. They may return someday. And if they do, they'll find Earth standing with Zentir, Hayes assured her. As night fell, the UES Valiant prepared for departure. The human team gathered their equipment while Centurions came to bid farewell. Governor Lionel presented Hayes with a small crystal containing Zentir's complete cultural archives. So Earth may know us as we now know you, he explained. The humans boarded their ship amid farewell gestures from hundreds of Centurions. As the Valiant's engines powered up, Bennett took the pilot's seat. Course set for Earth, Commander. Estimated arrival in 3 days. Hayes nodded, looking at his team with pride. Let's go home. As the ship lifted from Zentir's surface, Illyra received an urgent communication from the Cooperative Council. She read it twice before sharing its contents with Governor Lionel. The Paxora system is under attack, she said quietly. They're specifically requesting Earth's assistance. Lionel's antennae quivered thoughtfully. The galaxy is learning what we now know. Sometimes, when facing darkness, you need those who evolved in harsh conditions. Sometimes, you need Deathworlders. The Valiant disappeared into faster-than-light travel, carrying home the first humans to fight for alien allies, but certainly not the last.